The whole FSU wanting to get out of the ACC thing is not new. Even if you've been paying just a small bit of attention to college football or college athletics even, you know that FSU's trying to get out. Clemson's trying to get out. North Carolina, a lot of these schools want out. They don't like their situation there. And if you're new to the game and you wonder, what do they want out for? Well, it goes back a long way and it's a long story, but essentially it boils down to money, and they're not going to get enough of it. And they don't like being boxed in, and they're looking at what the SEC's doing, and they're looking at what the Big Ten's doing. They want to be doing that thing instead of the thing they're currently doing. So we've talked about this a lot on the show, and if you're unfamiliar, go back and find the videos on this topic. However, there were, and still are, a lot of rumors out there about when this would happen. Hey, it's easy to say this stuff. This stuff's vague. That's what FSU fans come to me most frequently in the comments and say, why are you saying things that are so vague? If you claim you know something, why don't you just spill it? It's a good point. Here's my reason. I don't know. I don't know the details. No one does. Even the people more informed than me, even the people that are ultimately going to pull levers on various parts of this decision, I don't think know the full story. Now, it could be that in retrospect, we get the full story when they write the book on not if, but when FSU leaves. When we end up getting the book, hey, maybe there was some maybe there was some group of wizards behind the curtain over here, not just one that knew the whole time. The feedback I get is that's not the way it is. The way it is this little enclave of folks over here know what's going on in their lane, and this little group of people over here know what's going on in that lane, and maybe they talk, maybe they communicate, but there is no possible way, given how tangled the web is, for someone in my line of work to have all those details. And if I did, if someone trusted you with that, there's especially no way I'd be able to spill it. Don't worry, I don't fit into the latter. I fit into the former. However, doesn't mean I don't talk to anyone. So I'm going to reiterate what I told you last week, I think on the Late Kick Extra Pod. On the legal side of this front, I do have pretty decent contacts. These contacts do not necessarily care about sports. They care about their legal careers. And so they informed me a couple of weeks ago. Get ready. Get ready. These are not people that are prone to hyperbole. Again, they don't care. But they did give me the good courtesy of letting me know that whatever kind of dominoes were put in motion a couple of weeks ago, it's going down. When is it going down? Can't possibly know. But I will say this, in talking to a couple of other people informed on the matter, not involved, but informed on the matter, here's something to consider that I, from two different folks, got told enough to where it made sense to me and it kind of raised my antenna a little bit. It's a foregone conclusion amongst pretty much anyone who knows anything that it's a matter of time before Florida State makes a move. How they're going to do it is beside the point because you're not involved. I'm not involved. We don't need to figure out how. We just know it's coming, or we think we know it's coming. The decision makers involved in when that's going to happen are of this world. This world, meaning they don't wear a whistle around their neck. They understand marketing, strategy, promotion, dollars and cents, of course, but they understand there is a picture here much bigger than just Doak Campbell Stadium or Clemson or Florida State or fill in the blank. They understand that there's a whole bigger world. There's a world with several zeros on the end of it. That's what this really all centers around. And what I'm saying that for is I want to take you back about 3 years. This month, 3 years ago, we enter July. No one's talking about Texas and OU and the SEC. No one. And then we get into mid-July. And where was it that year? I think Birmingham or Atlanta. SEC Media Days starts. And you wake up the morning the bomb goes off and you know nothing. And all of a sudden, you get a text, or you check Twitter, or you get an alert sent to your phone, or someone calls you and says, can you believe Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC? And that was the first you heard of it. You can't overstate the impact that had on this space, but also just on the entire ecosystem of not only the entertainment industry, not only collegiate athletics, but listen, the college landscape in general from an institutional level. You can't overstate how big the impact was. They maximized the impact because of how it was handled, when the lever was pulled, when the trigger was pulled, when they did it. Other people were paying attention to that. So we're coming up on Big Ten media days. We're coming up on SEC media days. I keep getting told from people who are much more in the know on this than me, July, July, July. I think there's a mid-August date that technically, if you're a Florida State and you want to get out in time for 2025, you kind of need to have the ball already down the hill by that point. That's in the weeds. When would it be more opportune to do this? It would be opportune in July. Now, the question that is both valid and irrelevant to me right now is how? How? Josh, it's easy to talk. How are they going to do it? Well, I don't know. I do not know. It's not beating around the bush. I'm telling you, I don't know because I'm not in those conversations. But when you are told by enough people who are privy to the conversations, one way or another this is going to happen, the how becomes kind of irrelevant for me. In other words, as long as I'm confident, the Florida State is confident they're doing this one way or another, I don't care how they do it. I do care when they do it. And I think the when will be sooner rather than later, at least from a news-breaking standpoint. It's not just going to be Florida State. Florida State is the face of this, though. I do want to address one thing, though, because I've had some disagreement on radio in the past week with some folks about this. And Paul Feinbaum actually had a quote about this. He was asked about the Big Ten, and Florida State may be going to the Big Ten. And he said something that he's not the first to say. A lot of people have expressed this sentiment, so I did want to touch on this. He said, I know Florida State thinks they're heavily in demand, but there are some questions about what exactly they bring to the Big Ten. Now, he's referring to a few different things. You could take it any of a number of ways because he kind of meant it every way. Academically, what he went on to not just suggest, but outright say is they don't fit the Big Ten portfolio per se, and that's just from an academic standpoint. Cardale Jones rolls his eyes even as I say that. Also, he's saying the Big Ten's already plenty deep enough. Do they need Florida State? So I guess I disagree not only with the sentiment that he's expressing there. A lot of people have suggested that Big Ten doesn't need Florida State. SEC doesn't need Florida State. Well, no, they don't need anything. I don't need to eat tonight. I'd prefer to eat tonight. I would make it. I'd survive without dinner this evening. The Big Ten's test here, if they have an opportunity to add a Florida State, to me is about institution versus inventory. I'm a believer that we're in sort of a postmodern world in a lot of fronts when it comes to college athletics and college football realignment. For instance, back in the day, not too long ago, first off, academics mattered a whole lot, and I'm not sure we're in the institution-centric model that we once were with how athletics have been totally carved out from the institution like they will be moving forward. But number two, I'm not so sure that the grabbing of media markets for the Big Ten and the SEC matters nearly as much as it used to. Recruiting pipelines, maybe, but I even think that's overblown these days and moving forward. What I think matters more than anything is once you've got your media rights deals in line, and once you've saturated to a pretty maximum effect depth of team in your conference, you just go add inventory. You've already secured the land. You've built the store. It's bigger than any other store in town. You've got the shelf space. Don't you just look to put as much quality product on the shelves as you can? That's what adding Florida State does. Or for that matter, that's what adding a Miami or a Clemson or a North Carolina does. And not just in football, but I specifically care about football. Or let me dumb it down even more. Giving me more Michigan versus Florida State is never a bad thing. Never. I don't care what the cumulative GPA is, nor does anyone else. That ultimately has to do with how much these deals are worth in the first place. Because let's not get it backwards, with all due respect to the distinguished alumni networks and the professors on campus there. The reason that these things have so many zeros attached to them is because you got folks who may have never darkened the door of a classroom in Ann Arbor or Tallahassee who are paying good money to not only buy TV networks, buy packages, go to games. That's why this is worth what it's worth. We're not stupid. We all understand that. And if you can give me more of that, or in the SEC, if you could give me more Oklahoma versus Florida State, that's inventory. That's what matters. I think we may have movement on this in July. I think we may have news coming on this in July. I don't know for sure. That's not misleading, because I'm telling you right now, I don't know for sure. I have a feeling that's somewhat guided that we may have something moving on that in July.